Hey everyone, my name is Brant Moore, and in this video I'm going to be doing a review on every single piece and part of this entire BMX bike. I had this idea yesterday and I thought it'd be super fun to do. It's kind of like a bike check, but with a little bit more in-depth information for you guys who might be interested. So with that, no more talking, let's just get right into the review of all of the different parts here, starting from the top to the bottom, front to the back, with the bar ends. These bar ends I've honestly been riding for 10 or more years now, and I have absolutely no idea what brand they are. All I know is that these things have lasted, and literally they just look dinged up for the past 10 years. Nothing's changed about them. So with that, I have to give my bar ends a solid 10 out of 10 because they still do their job, and I don't see them stopping that anytime soon. I don't see them failing or breaking off the bike or anything like that. If they've made it for 10 or more years now, I think that they're going to make it for as long as I can have them on this bike. From there, move into the grips. I ride ODYSSEY Tom Dugan grips. These grips right here are a little bit worn out. It's just about time for a new pair. But the thing that I like about these grips, and the reason that I ride these ones, is that they're like ODI grips, except they're a little bit thicker and a little bit softer. The feather on them, indifferent for me on that, but I absolutely enjoy these grips, and I think the only thing that I could say about them and why I wouldn't give them a solid 10 out of 10, I would give them a 9 out of 10, is just the fact that they don't last super long like the ODI grips do. From there, we'll turn the bars a little bit, talk about the brake lever. I have an ODYSSEY MONOLEVER medium brake lever. I've been riding this one for years now. I honestly don't know how many years I've had this on my bike. Obviously, you can tell by the wear that's on it, but this lever works. It just works. It's comfortable, it feels good, it provides you with enough leverage to stop when you need to, especially for the tech tricks that I like doing where I need my brakes there 100% all of the time. ODYSSEY also provides you with the bushings that go in this brake lever, so you can replace those whenever it starts to wear out. And the only reason you would ever need to replace one of these entirely is if you bent it or broke it, and they're only $20. So honestly, the only reason I could see taking any points off for the brake lever is just the fact that I have to modify cables in order to run the dual upper gyro cable setup. So for anyone who's not running dual upper gyro cables, I would say this is a solid 10 out of 10, but maybe I'll take it back 0.5 to a 9.5 for anyone who's running these dual upper gyro cables. And with that, let's just start talking about my brake cables. These are custom cables that I just made at the bike shop with housing and cable inners that they had there. If you've seen any of my videos about my upper gyro cable setup, you know that this is a single inner cable that spans from the gyro all the way up through the lever, then back down to the other side of the gyro. I use a 1.6 millimeter cable inner just for longevity. In order to make it work with the ODYSSEY MONOLEVER, you have to modify this piece at the top of the gyro cable just so the barrel adjuster will be able to thread through it. You have to widen the gap so that it can fit in there. And honestly, when it comes to these brake cables, just because they don't last quite as long as my other cables, I will give these a 9 out of 10 as well. I've had to replace them a little bit more often than usual lately. I think that's because I'm pulling my brakes harder than I ever have been before. That's not a big, huge problem. I enjoy these cables. I enjoy this setup because it's super easy and fast to replace. And with that, let's continue on with the review. Let's talk about the handlebars. These are NOWEAR BMX Street Treats handlebars. These are 9-inch rise. They've got a 10-degree back sweep with a they're 10 and 2. I don't remember which one it is. I'm sorry. 10 degrees up, 2 degrees back, or 10 degrees back and 2 degrees up. I think that's what it is. It's 10 degrees back, 2 degrees up. When it comes to these handlebars, you guys, if you've seen my riding, you know that I like to do candy bars, saran wraps, stuff like that, bar hops. These bars help with that. There's no getting around it, and I enjoy that about them. I've had no issues with these 4-piece bars right here, other than the fact that a lot of you like to complain about them. And with that, I've got to give these bars a solid 10 out of 10 because there's no reason that I would have to take off for them. The stem is an ALIENATION vault stem with 53 millimeters of reach. I'm pretty sure it's 33 or 36 millimeters of rise. And with that, when I put it on, it felt like a lot of things got easier. It felt like my bike got more comfortable. This is a split top cap design. There's 2 different caps here that have 2 bolts each. This one's made of 7 series aluminum, and it just looks cool, I think. I'm just gonna give this stem a 9.5 out of 10, and the only reason that I'm going to not give it a 10 is just because of the fact that it's a little bit more difficult whenever you have 2 different top caps on here to get even spacing between all 4 spacings that you have to keep even in putting this on here. So let's move on from there down a little bit to talk about the forks. ODYSSEY R32 forks. You guys already know they're the best forks in BMX. Lifetime warranty, 41 thermal heat treating process, 32-degree offset. They're just the best forks in BMX, the R series. So I really don't need to go in depth about those. So next, let's move back up a little bit to the gyro and headset that I completely forgot to talk about. This is the ODYSSEY GTX gyro. This is the one that does have the screws in it in order to tighten the screws down to your brake cable. I need this because, of course, as I said earlier, it's a single cable inner, which means that there's no ends on this cable, and I'm relying on the screws to hold the cable in place and keep things where they need to be. I like this gyro because, 1, it's an actual bearing, it's got bearings in there, and 2, it's got the screws in it. I like this thing. I think that there's other gyros out there that do the exact same thing. There's not really a ton that puts this thing like amazing technology that puts it way over the top and makes it better than everything out there. Plus, they don't make it with the screws anymore, so it's getting a 9 out of 10. I'm knocking a whole point off just for the fact that they don't make this thing with the screws in it anymore. Next, headset. This is an ODYSSEY headset, and I'm a firm believer that pretty much all integrated headsets are the exact same thing unless we're talking about ceramic bearings. So I'm just going to keep rolling with this because it's the same thing as every other headset bearings out there, and the only difference is just the fact that I have a different cap and it's an ODYSSEY cap. Moving back downward to the front wheel, let's talk about the central piece of a front wheel, the front hub. This is a Profile Elite or Totem front hub all the way from back in 2012. This thing has been kicking for quite some time now. I'm pretty sure I replaced the bearings in it sometime last year. The original bearings in this hub lasted 6 years, I'm pretty sure. And that is quite a long time. So that tells you something about the bearings that Profile uses in their hubs. With that being said, I like the way that this one looks, and it's lasted me for a long time now. So with that, I think I'm gonna give this one a 9.5 out of 10, just because I've had it for so long, it's still holding up, and I don't see any end to that in sight. From there, let's talk about the spokes that I have in here. I don't even know what spokes they are, to be completely honest with you. Some of them are the original spokes that I built this thing with. Some of them have been replaced throughout the years of breaking them. With that, they work, they're black, they don't break very often, so let's just give these random spokes a 9 out of 10. Moving on from there, we've got the ALIENATION Felon rim laced onto this wheel. When it comes to these rims, they are honestly one of, if not the strongest, lightest rim on the market in BMX. That's why you see a lot of people who care about weight running these on their bike, because they're so light and so strong. And another thing about these rims, and all of the ALIENATION rims that have the 4D spoke drilling in it, they're just the easiest rims to true because the tiniest rotation of the nipple gives you an outcome and has an effect on the trueness of the rim. And for that, as well as the other things I said, and just the fact that they last so long before they need replaced, I'm giving this thing a 10 out of 10. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I recorded a take where I said 9.5, but I went back and I thought about it. It's gotta be a 10 just for all of the things added up. And you're seeing a theme here, how every single piece on my bike so far has been a 9, a 9.5, or a 10. That's because I've been riding bikes for quite a long time now. I know what I like, I know what I think feels good, and I'm not going to ride something on my bike that 1, doesn't feel good, 2, doesn't have a good reputation, and 3, isn't going to last through the stuff that I know that I'm going to put it through. From there, let's talk about my tires. I've got the same tire on both the front and the rear in the same size. This is an ODYSSEY AITKEN tire. It's the non-folding version. I don't even know if they make a folding version, to be honest with you, but this is 2.25 both front and rear. I think that's the perfect size for what I like to do. These tires, I think, are one of the best tires you can buy for all around riding in BMX. They work in the trails, they work at the skate park, they work on concrete parks, they just work everywhere. And one huge thing that I have to say about these tires is that they come with about twice as much tread on them as far as the depth goes as most current tires do in 2020. These things have such deep tread and they last so long because of it that when I feel like I need new ones, they still have about as much tread as some tires that you buy brand new today, which I think just earns these things a solid 10 out of 10. Now let's talk about the hub guard and peg. This is the G Sport Marmoset hub guard? No, G Sport M2. I don't know what this hub guard's called. GLANDIII, something or another. It's a plastic hub guard that ties to your spokes with a shoelace or zip ties or something like that. The original one that I had on my bike legitimately lasted almost 10 years and I didn't even really need to replace it. This hub guard gets a solid 10 out of 10. The hub is in perfect condition even after that long of riding on it. There's nothing else to say about it. It's just a good hub guard. Then to talk about my pegs, I have the same front and rear peg. It's the ODYSSEY JPEG steel peg in 4.5 inches. I personally ride these pegs because a longer peg makes ice pick stalls easier for me on quarter pipes and makes it so I can sit in those ice picks for 20 minutes at a time like you guys have all seen. There's really not much else to say from there. They've lasted me. I enjoy them. So I'll give them a 9.5 out of 10 because they only have 3 places for the rotation pin to go, which means that you have to replace them a little bit sooner than some other pegs out there. Like the Shadow Little Ones pegs has so many different places that you can put that pin that you can rotate that peg like 5 or 6, maybe more times and get that much more life out of it. Can't do that with these ones, but regardless, they're good pegs. So like I said, I had one on the front and the rear, so I'm not going to talk about it in the rear. Moving on from there, we've got this nice little Wilson tennis ball. Everybody always asks questions about it, so I'm going to talk about it right here. I found this tennis ball while riding bikes, and that's pretty much it. I like riding souvenirs, so I threw it in my front wheel, and that's why I ride it. I don't know if it does anything for riding or rotational weight or anything like that. I just enjoy it, so that's why it's there. Also, I've got this not so light up valve stem cap here. There's no batteries in it. It used to light up. It might if I put some batteries in it. But the only reason I ride that is because my buddy Ryan put them on my bike like a long time ago and I just never saw a need to switch it out after that. From there, let's talk about the central part of the whole entire bike. And I have no idea how far into this video we are, but I'm sorry if it's super long. I've got the Sunday SOUNDWAVE V3 frame, and if you haven't heard of the SOUNDWAVE frame, or you didn't know, it's got waved tubing on the top of the top tube and the bottom of the down tube. This is meant to make it stronger and resist denting. This frame also has a lifetime warranty, which is why I always tell people that they should get this frame. It's also under 5 pounds, so it makes it a pretty light frame for all of the different strength features that they have put into this thing. So obviously, if I've ridden this SOUNDWAVE frame since the V2 like I have, and this is my 4th one and I haven't broken any of them, I'm gonna have to give this thing a 10 out of 10. Now let's move a little bit closer since we're done talking about the front of the bike, and let's start talking about the seat. The seat is the ODYSSEY monogram seat. It's a pivotal seat. It's lasted me longer than several other seats that I've had. So with that, 8.5 out of 10, just because we haven't had anything under a 9 yet. Next, we've got the ALIENATION seat post. This thing goes down to like here, which I like because it lets me raise my seat whenever I need to for certain tricks that I like to do. It's a seat post. There's not really much that differentiates seat posts from other seat posts other than the color and the length. So 9 out of 10 for the seat post. Seat post clamp is the generic Sunday seat post clamp that comes with the Sunday frames. Does its job. Nothing differentiates this from any other seat post clamp out there other than the color and the branding on it. So a 9 out of 10, just like we did with the seat post. And also, before we move on to talking about the back stuff here, we need to talk about my lower cables. You see these V-brake noodles here. This is what these are called. The main reason that I have these on my bike is just because it makes the length of cable you need to replace on the bottom shorter, and it also takes the strain off of the cable itself. Whenever you have a bent cable, it's putting friction on the cable inner, but if you have this metal tubing that's just rigid and it's already in that shape, you don't have that same amount of friction, so that's why I have that there. These are custom cables that I made at the bike shop, just like I made my upper cables. They're not any brand name, they're just what I made at the shop. They use the same 1.6 millimeter cable inners that I use in my top cables. So with that, the cables themselves, because of this setup that I have down here, which I do have a video about in my brake playlist, they last forever. They seriously last forever, and that's because I come down here, I loop them through a NARP without a screw in it, and then pinch them together with a straddle cable bolt. It just makes them last a long time. So with that, these cables get a 10 out of 10, hands down. This London mod is off of a bike that I got like 2010. It does its job, so we're just gonna give that thing a 10 out of 10 because it's lasted 10 years. From there, since we're talking about brakes, let's talk about the brakes. These are the Shadow SANO brakes, I'm pretty sure is what they're called. I feel like I'm getting to a point where I need to replace them because I feel like they're flexing more than they used to. So I'll probably do that soon, but they've lasted me several years now and I have no complaints about these brakes. They work, they seem to flex less than other brakes that I've heard people talking about. So with that, we'll just give these brakes a 9.5 out of 10 just because they're starting to go bad and I need to replace them basically. Back up and down a little bit, talk about the cranks. These are ODYSSEY Thunderbolt Plus cranks, 175 millimeters. If they have the same lifetime warranty that the frame and fork has, and that's why I recommend these cranks. They're a two-piece design. They don't have splines on them, they just have a wedge system that makes it almost dummy proof to put them onto the bike. They're tough as nails, you're not going to bend anything on them, and the worst that could probably happen is you mess up the wedge cluster, which then you replace that and your cranks are good to go again. So I've got to give the ODYSSEY Thunderbolt cranks a 10 out of 10. That's why so many people run these cranks, and they know that if something does happen, they're just going to get replaced and everything is going to be okay. So from there, let's talk about my sprocket. Sunday KNOX sprocket in 28 tooth. This is 7 series aluminum and it has 5 different locations for you to put your bolt for your crank. That means you can rotate this thing 4 different times after you install it initially in order to get that much more life out of it. I've been riding this thing for over a year now. I do sprocket tricks any chance I get on concrete, wood, anything that I can, railings sometimes, like metal railings, and this thing is still holding up so freaking well. I've only rotated it 1 time in that year, and it's still straight. It's not bent or anything like that, and I've absolutely beaten the crap out of this thing, but apparently not because it's still great. So with that, I gotta give this thing a 10 out of 10, and this is for good reason. There are some guard sprockets out there that I've ridden that just don't hold up as well as this thing has, so it definitely earns that 10 out of 10. Now let's talk about the pedals. These are ODYSSEY Trail Mix pedals. They're the sealed version. I don't think I could ever ride unsealed pedals ever again after riding sealed pedals. They just feel smoother, and that smoother feeling when you're pedaling through the trails or just pedaling in general, it's just a good feeling while you're riding your bike. But there is one thing that I have to say about these pedals. I tried them out because I thought that maybe it would be okay. But when it comes to pedals that the pins screw in through the bottom, I just can't do it. I ruin the pins super fast. These pins, they just push out whenever I do pedal stall tricks. I am just super tough on the pedals. So with that, since they couldn't hold up to me for as long as I would like them to, I've got to give these an 8 out of 10. I would rank them higher, but once these pins get pushed out, there's just no putting a pin back in there because it pushes the threads out with it. There's just no material there for those threads on the pin to bite to, and that just means that once they get ruined, you have to replace them, and sealed pedals are a lot more expensive than unsealed pedals. 8 out of 10 for the pedals, and let's move on to the chain. This is an ODYSSEY keychain, and if you haven't heard what the ODYSSEY keychain is, it's where it uses an Allen key to break the chain. So initially, you break off the extra links that you don't need 1 time, and then from there, all you need to take this chain completely off of your bike is an Allen wrench. It's pretty awesome. The other thing I like about this chain versus other chains out there, and especially half-link chains, is that the pins don't really get loose. They wiggle a little bit, but if you guys have ever ridden half-link chains, you know that those pins get super loose and move around, and to me, that just feels unsafe and like it could break in any second. So I found this chain, I tried it out, and I've absolutely loved it. I have broken one of these chains before, but I feel like it's like freak accidents where you're like doing pedal stalls on concrete ledges where it's just not very many chains could hold up to that for as many attempts as I needed to land the trick that I was trying. So this is an instance where just because I've broken one before and had to mess with it, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. But I absolutely love this chain, and I don't know if I'll ever ride any other chain, honestly. So let's move on and let's go a little bit further back here. Let's talk about the back wheel. When it comes to my back wheel, let's start with the central point just like we did on the front. This is the Free Night Planetary Free Coaster. I'm going to do a full review on this free coaster, so I don't want to go super in depth on this. I'm trying to keep this video as short as possible. So all I'm going to say about this thing is that I love it. Quick description of how it works. This is the only free coaster cassette hybrid hub, as well as the only free coaster hub that you don't have to disengage or re-engage, and I'll show you what I mean. So you're pedaling it in cassette mode. You can hear my brake pad on the rim because it's in the stand. You hear it cassetting. Now we're free coasting. I didn't disengage it, I just stopped pedaling. So now we're moving forward again, and we're back in cassette mode. Back to coasting. I've got a ton of videos about this thing in a whole playlist, so I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Let's talk about the back rim. This is an Alienation Vandal rim. It's an Aero style rim. It's also an XL style rim, which means it's wider. This is the lightest XL rim that you can get in BMX right now, and I absolutely love this thing. One gigantic plus for me for this thing is that it has a coating on it that makes your brakes work better. Literally, you don't have to put anything on your rim, you don't have to do anything to your pads, you just ride your bike and pull your brakes and they work. It's amazing and I absolutely love it. And for that and the fact that this rim is super strong and light, I'm giving this rim a 10 out of 10, hands down, no questions asked. I've already talked about my tire in the back. I've got my light cap, it's exactly the same. The last things that we have to talk about are the peg and the hub guard. The peg is the exact same peg, so I don't need to talk about that, but the hub guard. This is a daily grind chromoly hub guard that I have been riding for a solid 6-7 years now. Due to the fact that I've had to modify it to keep it from rubbing on my spokes, I'm going to give this thing an 8.5 out of 10, but ultimately it is a good hub guard. The tubes and the rim strips and other small things like that. The tubes are just random tubes that I got from the bike shop. The rim strips, I don't even remember which rim strip is in the back, but I'm pretty sure I have electrical tape as the rim strip in the front. I did forget the bottom bracket. Bottom brackets are just like headsets in that they're pretty much all the same thing. Real quick here, since we're talking about this whole bike, I feel like I need to shout out the people who support me by helping me keep this thing as dialed as it is. Alienation helps me with the rims and the stem, then Brimstone Bicycles helps me with all the odds and ends parts and things that I need for it, and then Philip Rinaldi, Sunday Bikes, and Full Factory Distribution have provided me with a bunch of the parts that are on this bike. I've got to give a shout out to NOWEAR because I used to ride for NOWEAR, and that's how I got those bars. And then to top all of it off, none of this would be able to be kept as dialed as it is if it wasn't for Park Tool providing me with all of the correct tools to fix this bike and maintain it both safely and in the best way possible. So shout out to all of you and thank you for supporting me. I just feel like this is something that a new person to BMX could enjoy, or someone who's just getting back into BMX like a lot of the people who watch my channel, because you guys might have questions about what people actually ride on their bikes that lasts a long time. A lot of the parts that I ride on my bike, I ride because they lasted me so long. I will not ride something that there is a fear of it breaking, period. I'm not going to do that because I'm hard on my bike and I don't want to have to worry or ever have to think about a part breaking while I'm doing a trick. I just want to ride my bike and not worry about anything. So with that, if you guys made it this far, let me know in the comments down below. Let me know what you thought of this. Tell me I sucked at it because I'm monotone and it took way too long. If you guys are new here or you haven't yet, consider hitting the subscribe button down below so that hopefully we will see you all tomorrow for another video. Let me know if you enjoyed this concept. I'm sorry that it was so long, but it was necessary and I hope that it helped some of you. So thank you again for watching and goodbye.